Hello, and welcome to the OUTLIER Podcast, the podcast for everyone who is interested in building better homes. My name is Anthony, and I am the founder and lead designer of OUTLIER, and I'm passionate about creating beautiful and high-performing homes. I sit down regularly to chat with industry experts to help educate Australians about the potential of creating healthy, comfortable, and energy-efficient homes. Whether you are looking to build your forever home, renovate your existing house, or simply eager to learn more, tune in every month wherever you get your podcasts. We hope you join us on this journey. I have been very fortunate with the journey of this podcast to chat with many experts and knowledgeable people. As new people come to the podcast every week, we want to take all the highlights and helpful information from previous discussions to provide them to you to assist you with your own high-performance home journey.
How did you get into the window business?
Look, that's an interesting question. I remember when I was very young and my older brother and I were walking home from school, and we walked through a building site. We had to cut through a new building site, and there was this big stack of recently delivered windows there, all glazed, and a big stack of bricks next to them. And my brother sort of gave me a nudge and said, this could be fun. So we started throwing the bricks through the windows. And the builder, I don't know where he came from, but he caught us and he gave us a kick up the backside. So it's either I'm just paying penance for doing that. I've been in windows all my life. But I was lucky enough just as a kid, a friend of mine who used to deliver windows for the company Trend in Bayswater in Melbourne, he got me a job as a truck jockey when I was about 16. So that's actually where I started. And I had many different roles at Trend. I was there for about 15 years. Ended up as the sales manager there with a bit more education and so forth. Mm-hmm. And then I've worked in windows and glass and for the Window Association basically for about, it's about 36, 37 years now.
Can you give us a brief little overview of some of the most standard window type?
Yeah. So, look, in Australia, our most common window, and still is, the predominant window type of aluminium. Aluminium sliders, I guess, in the northern states, and probably in the last, 10 or 15 years, probably aluminium awning in the southern states. We've always had timber. Timber was a fairly big product, 30 years ago. It's still going now, but it's certainly that market share has shrunk. But timber windows very common, and you go and look at any houses, sort of built 90s and back, you'll find lots and lots of timber windows. UPVC is one that's now, I guess, coming in. Well, it's been in the market for a while, but it's actually really starting to grow now for lots of different reasons. I guess it's most of the UPVC that we're seeing here in Australia are European design. So we're actually talking about, pretty high performing products. When you look at hardware, how they're designed and so forth, a lot more higher performing than some of the most basic aluminium and timber products. Fiberglass, very small market here in Australia. I think there's only one or two companies that actually sell fiberglass. But composite windows is another thing that's certainly grown, in the last 10 years. We have, some very high performance, European type, but even Australian design products, aluminium clad timber. And it's for performance reasons, which I guess we'll discuss as we go through further. But aluminium thermal breaks, another one. So with energy efficiency, the aluminium thermal brakes products have really grown in the last, I guess it's over 10 years. And most system suppliers actually have a thermally broken system available now. So that's been, a real change and one that's now pretty common, certainly in the southern states. UPVC is another example. There's UPVC. There's a couple of companies that are doing UPVC that are aluminium clad externally, and so they're sort of the most common material types that we're using for windows. When you're talking about glass, so we basically used single glazed clear, 3mm, 4mm, 5mm. Then, I was around when safety glasses were introduced for doors and side lights and, bathrooms and so forth. Then we had, and I worked very early with a company that introduced or just focused on double glazed. So it was a fairly small market then, but that has grown massively, particularly in Victoria and Tasmania and colder areas of New South Wales. And it started as just standard, clear air and clear units, but we've then moved towards low E products. So we used low E products as single glazing for a while because there are energy benefits in that over your clear. Then hard coat low E. So you've got two types of low E's as well, hard coat and soft coat. So we started off with the hard coats because we were using it monolithically, and it was manufactured here as well as overseas. And those hard coats are also used in insulated glass units, so double glazing. And that really lifts the performance in a U value, a thermal performance sense. And now, just in the last, I guess it's 3, maybe 4 years, we're now seeing the same sort of stuff that they're using in Europe. So soft coat low E's. So it took a while for the glass industry to get the hang of how to use that. It's a bit more complex than the hard coat. You've got to strip it off around the edge work to attach the spacer bar so you can then double glaze. But the glass companies are all pretty much as a standard now selling the soft coat low E's. Yeah. And performance wise compared to the hard coat, it's just a much better product.
Could you maybe quickly explain what low E is exactly?
Yeah, so low E stands for low emissivity. So if you think, I try to put it in real simple terms.
Yeah.
This is how I've spoken to builders about it. If you think about heating, so if you've got your heater running in the house, what you're creating is long wave energy. What that low E coat does, it's a metallic coating on the glass that you can see through, but what it does is reflect that long wave energy back into the house. So where just clear glass would let a lot of that through, it reflects some back. Yep. The low E coating actually reflects a whole heap back more. So when you've got the heater going in the house, it's actually staying within the house rather than going through the windows.
Yeah.
And in a cooling sense, so in a hotter climate, if you think about outside, you've got the energy coming from the sun, so shortwave energy, and it's hitting, pavements and roads and so forth. Some of that material is actually absorbing that energy and then reflecting it back out as long wave. So if you're in a hot climate and you've got, lots of paths and stuff outside, you've got all this long wave energy trying to come in to your house. So you've got the cooler on inside. A clear glass will let that all come in. Well, not all, but quite a lot of it come in and through. So it's heating up your house. Yep. What that low E coating then does is actually reflects that long wave energy back outside. So it doesn't let as much through. So it simply actually improves the U value.
Yeah, I see a huge improvement on the performance of windows just by having that low E coating. And what you've just described there, I just wanted to, maybe if you could clarify as well, like that it still lets natural light through. This doesn't block natural light or anything at all, does it?
Yeah, correct. So some of the harder coats blocked out a bit. The new soft coats, you actually look at them and it looks like clear glass. You could sometimes see some, pink or blue tinges on the hard coats, but the soft coats, and I've got some at home, looking through the glass, it's like looking through a clear window. So yeah, still heaps of light come through.
I suppose maybe if you could just, extending on that, maybe just touch on some of maybe the benefits of, say, UPVC or some of the composite windows versus some of maybe aluminium, and like just the variances and the different frames and glass and what those price points sort of look like with those differences.
Yeah, so I guess if you've got to think about when you look at the performance of a window, you're not just looking at the glass. That's one part, and it's obviously a big part. But you've got to also look at the frame. So if you can imagine holding in one hand a piece of aluminium, in the other hand a piece of timber, and if you had three hands, in the third hand holding a piece of UPVC, have your gas stove going and stick those materials over the flame. So which one do you think you're going to drop first?
Well, it's going to be the aluminium for me.
Absolutely, you will, because that as a material, it transfers a lot of energy through it, so it'll get hot really quickly. So you're going to drop that one. Whereas timber and UPVC, the heat doesn't come through. So thermally, it works much better, those materials. If you had an aluminium thermal brake frame, as an example, so you've got a break between that aluminium, there'll be some type of plastic. There's companies have different names for it. Polyamide's one name. But what that does is actually stop the heat transfer. And I guess an example would be with a standard aluminium window with double glazing. So you've got and let's say it's low E double glazing, so that's performing really well. In a colder climate, or even in a hot climate, but if you think about a cold climate, with a standard aluminium window, and let's say you've got the heater on at 24 inside and it's 2 degrees outside, what you're getting is a lot of cold coming through that aluminium frame. And I've seen lots of examples over the years where the glass is fine, but on the aluminium frame, you've actually got to the dew point, and so you've actually got lots of moisture coming off that material. I saw an example in Canberra years ago, and it just had single glazed low E standard aluminium frames. They were getting bucket loads of water off one sliding door every night through the winter. It was amazing. So the only answer to that is actually to ventilate the house, so open the window up. And that's not necessarily what we want to do when it's freezing cold outside.
So what about price point for those different types?
The cheapest window has always been in Australia just a basic standard aluminium slider with clear glass. But we're sort of beyond that here, certainly in the colder climates. They're still using some of that in the warmer climates. So that's the lowest price point. But once you want to upgrade and get to better performing products, your timber and your UPVC will be, roughly the same as a performance window, cost-wise. I think your thermally broken aluminium takes a jump above that, not massive, but it'll be a bit more expensive. And then you go to your composite products. So your real high-end stuff are like aluminium-clad timber that are, engineered and designed, and European-type design products. They're right up there.
For those listening, would you be able to sort of maybe provide some definitions for U value and solar heat gain coefficient? And there's also, I suppose, the air infiltration as well, and TMEW, and maybe you could just provide a bit of a definition for those terminology.
Yeah, so I'll give a technical and one I just use with people. So U value, if you think about when you think about U value, so it's the insulation performance of the system. And so if you've got a difference in temperature inside to out, the cold's always going to the warm side. Okay, so if you go up and touch a single glazed window when it's warm inside and cold outside, that window is cold. And so it's a measure of that. If you went and touched a double glazed low E product, it won't be it'll be more like the temperature inside the house rather than the outside. So it's about that transfer. So window products and glass products react thermally in two ways. So one is the difference in temperature inside to out. And for I guess the technical side, it's just a measure of the rate of non-solar heat loss or gain through the whole assembly. And you've got to keep in mind the lower, this is not like R values, it's the inverse. The lower the U value is the greater the resistance to the heat flow and the better the insulating value. So when you're purchasing windows, the lower the U value, no matter where you are, the lower the U value you can afford, go for it. Get the best you can. And as an example of numbers, the U value of an aluminium single glazed window will be somewhere between 5.5 and 6.5. And if you looked at a UPVC window with double glazed low E in it, the U value will be between 1.6 and 1.9. So that's a massive difference in performance. Solar heat gain coefficient. So this is the second way that they react thermally. So we're actually talking, and I don't know whether either of you guys have been in Canberra on a sunny winter's day where it's like -1 outside.
Yes.
So it's freezing, right? But if you're standing next to just a piece of clear glass and the sun's shining on that glass, you will get really hot. So we're talking about the energy from the sun coming through the window. So this is the second way they act thermally. So the solar heat gain coefficient is the measure of how much this is letting through. So it's a number of between 0 to 1. And as an example, a piece of clear glass has a solar heat gain coefficient of 0.67. So when that sun's hitting that piece of glass, it's 67% of that energy is coming straight inside. So that could be a good thing, obviously, if you're in a colder climate and it's winter and good north elevation and you're actually generating heat within the house. But if you're trying to keep it out, it's not a good thing. So think of a west elevation in the afternoon on a hot day, and you've got 67% of that energy coming in from the sun. It's really unpleasant.
Yeah.
So if you went to say the current soft coat low E's that are being used, they have a solar heat gain coefficient of our window system, the UPVC window with that low E, has a solar heat gain coefficient of 0.38. So instead of 67%, it's letting 38% through. And that is a massive difference in how it feels and the performance of the window. Visible light transmittance, we don't look at it a lot, but what you've got to think about, because if you're trying to block out that heat coming in, you can get some really high performing products that are down to a solar heat gain coefficient of 0.2, and you think, well, that's the glass I want. That's only letting 20% in, but that glass might be like a really, really dark grey. And all of a sudden, when you've put it in, the light, and we're trying to get free light into the house, you don't want to have to turn your lights on day and night. The light that comes through those sorts of products is minimal compared to something with a high, well, that's the measure of the visible light transmission. So that's again 0 to 1. And so the closer you get to the 1, the higher the amount of light, natural light that you're getting into the building. So that's where the low E products are really good compared to some of the tints. Although there's some high performance tints that still have a visible light transmittance, but cut out a lot of that solar heat gain. So things like, there's high performance greens. They're one of the best performing. So they'll have a solar heat gain coefficient of about, probably 0.38, 0.4. But the visible light transmittance is not that far below a clear of 0.67. Yeah. So you're still getting lots of light. So that's when you'd look at it and think about it. The other one you mentioned, Anthony, was air infiltration.
Yes.
So when you're thinking about a window system and how it's performing, obviously if you've got lots of air coming through, you're letting in the hot or the cold. So the lower that leakage amount is the better. So they express the number of litres per second per square metre of window. There's some minimums you have to have. So 3 is the number for unconditioned buildings. So it's allowed to let 3 litres per second per square metre come through. That's not minimum. That's the maximum it's allowed. Mm-hmm. Is that 3? It might be 5. It's one or the other. I can't think of it off the top of my head. And for a conditioned building, so maybe a hotel room or something like that that's always air conditioned, or any commercial building, that number's actually 1.
Thank you for listening to the Outlier Podcast. You can find helpful links and contact information regarding this episode in our show notes and on our website, outlierstudio.com.au/podcast. If you like our show, please leave a review and make sure you subscribe to never miss a new episode. If you have further questions for us or would want to share some additional feedback, please feel free to DM us on Instagram or Facebook. Until next time on the Outlier Podcast.